And okay, let's get started. For the people who don't know us, my name is Juliana. He's my fiance Steve. We are both coaches. We are both writers, authors of 2 bullish books. And I'm working with him right now because there is a lot of healing, unconscious healing we want to do as women that we're not even aware of. So that was, I called him to help me because of his experience in shamanism and Celtic mythology as well. So before I think we start, we can introduce ourselves a little bit. We actually been together for almost like a year and a half. I think so.
It's our 18th month, yeah.
Yeah, we met in Facebook during the pandemic, actually.
Yeah, early in the pandemic.
Yeah. And then we decided to meet after Colombia, my country, opened the frontiers. He traveled to Colombia and we met there. And we've been together since.
That's right. We've been, we're known as 2 American nomads on social media, on Instagram and also on Facebook, and that's because we've been doing the nomadic thing, traveling. We've lived in about a dozen cities around Colombia and Mexico, a number of places in each country, and right now we're in Cozumel, Mexico, coming to you today live, and it's a beautiful area today, in case you're wondering. If you can get a chance to stop by, you would not be disappointed. So yeah, that's us, 2 American nomads. We're both coaches and dealing with similar spaces from different approaches. We both have written books about that, more in line with our sort of expertise, if you want to say it like that. She has a book, One Life to Be You, and it's about her exodus from the corporate world and reinventing herself to start a new life. And mine is This Is How It Feels to Heal, Shamanic Journey Through Cancer, Recovery, and Life Changes, which chronicles the 8 years of that story, the dealing with the cancer and other things. And so that brings us to this day. And as we were in Mexico City at the beginning of the year, Juli had a bucket list of things she wanted to do this year, and one of them was she wanted to have some kind of core offering like this. And so the more we talked about it, the more it began to become apparent to us that this might be a good time for us to try to do something together. So that leads us up into this day. And so Juli is really the impetus behind the idea of all of this. And so we'll get back to her talking about that. And then after that, I'm going to talk about what we're going to be doing in an upcoming ceremony and sort of what it is and more about background on things like that today, to sort of wrap things up and also give you some opportunity to consider things you might be able to use to release some of these things that Juli will now talk about. So over to you on camera 1.
That I wanted to say that what I think the word that relate to our jobs, our work, is freedom. I think we will look for freedom, like we can say like freedom coaching kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Free from whatever attachment, addiction, illness, the job you hate, a life without purpose. So it's I think it's very related.
Right.
Okay, so welcome. Hi Stacy, welcome. So let's go to talk. What I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna introduce the topic and why we see this like an important thing, and why it's different to most of the feminine healing and thing that we hear in the spirituality community. It's gonna be quite different because it's very real. It's very current with the events, with the lives we're living in the modern world. It's not only about goddesses, but realizing our 3D life right now and the decision we have made from the programming of our society. So there is a lot of, I have my notes here because otherwise I go different ways and paths, so I have my notes to help me with the talking. There is a lot of unconscious guilt that women carry in their lives because we, in our decisions, are going very often against our feminine energy and against our human nature, and we are not even aware of the impact we're having in our energy, in our feminine energy, especially our womb, our mind, our feelings, our emotions, our impressions. And the reason is because we're being programmed in a certain way to believe that we should do certain things by whoever you want to say, whatever it's Hollywood or the Catholic Church or even pornography in many cases. So as we don't have a role model, a clear role model to follow our feminine energy, or in the case of men, the masculine energy, we tend to believe that whatever is in the screens or whatever the church told me is in fact true, you know. So we're deciding our lives according to that, and that has influenced a lot the feminine movement. Which, when I see the current wave of the feminine movement, I see a lot of hate against like the patriarchy, against men, like if it was like an entity we need to hate, you know. And that what is bringing to the table is also a lot of masculinity in females, because hating, fighting, all this power that the feminine woman brings is not feminine at all. So we're like using the masculine energy even to fight the masculine energy. So sometimes we're creating it worse, a fight that is not benefiting anybody. So we need to understand that we, women and men, we are together. We're connected, like with each other, with the universe, with nature, and this polarity, negative polarity we are creating between us is not good for us and for our next generations. So this is one of the first things I think we need to start realizing, is that it's not about hating them, fighting against them, but starting to understand what is all this programming that we would have and have been this programming we have been building, but the cultural environment that we need to understand to start healing. Okay, and the other thing that's important is for us to stop talking from the victim mentality. We need to take responsibility, not to blame the other ones or to blame us or to blame the system, and not to feel shame or guilt, but to heal. The responsibility is to heal ourselves. Okay.
I would like to add in here one thing to consider if you're watching from, say, the United States. When Huli says the Catholic Church, that's because you could substitute that word for just religion in general.
Yeah.
Because it just so happens in her country there is really, that's all. I mean, it's a ridiculously high number of people that are Catholic, as it is across Latin America. So when she says it like that, that's just sort of the way that she, brought up thinking about it. So you can insert that word, you can replace that word or whatever with just religion. And by that, we're not trying to pick on religion and connections to God or anything like that anybody might have. What we're referring to is sort of the larger picture that she mentioned in the sort of what I refer to as social conditioning that we have from the time that we are born up until the time we're, late teens, about time to head out of the house and things like that, in which we are told all the things it is you need to do to be a good citizen. And along the way, a lot of those are great things. I mean, there's plenty of good things taught in that are very useful for all of us to know. But there's also a lot of times there tends to be bias, and there's outdated thoughts and fears that come sort of programmed into that, or at least written into that, therefore sort of programming people. And I'm not saying that like you're just a robot and you have no control over it, but you really don't have a lot of control over sometimes the mores and belief systems of the society in which you're raised, be it the legal system or the religious system or even your family and your close friends. I mean, you pick up, what they're dropping down, as they say. And so that's what we're talking about so what happens is that can create some friction as you get older, because maybe that stuff doesn't really line up with the life that you're living. And so it puts you in that sort of combative space in your mind between these conflicting views. And in that, a lot of times people don't find within themselves the courage that they have to overcome this and let go of other things, and that creates sometimes, since they don't feel they have the courage, that they are being held back by it, thus becoming a victim of something. So it's the whole dynamic of sort of unraveling the social conditioning and being aware that it's there in whatever form it came in to be, and this sort of internal dialogue that is created around it that you need to sort of take control of, have custody of just your voice, and then just so that you don't become the victim of it, then you become the victor of your life, and you build from there. And I just wanted to add that in there a little bit.
Thank you. So when we see all those programs that are in our heads that someone else put there, what, as Steve was saying, it's not for feeling shame, guilt, or victim, but to take responsibility. And part of the things that we need to take responsibility for is all the decisions that we have made, okay, as women. No blaming other system, but being really conscious of what we have decided for us. And then many of those decisions were made rationally, using our brains and justifying why we were doing that. But also those justifications, the reasons why we are making those decisions, was also under these programs and limiting beliefs and toxic programming. But in our rational mind, it made sense. But we don't understand what those decisions, especially the ones that come from the womb, have impacted our energetics and how have impacted our mind body, our psyche, however you want to say it. So it's important to bring the awareness to see what decisions are that at some point in our lives, in certain level of consciousness we made, then we need probably to bring here, because if we don't understand them, we keep having dysfunctional relationships, not only with our partners, but also with ourselves or the feminine energies of other women or other masculine figures. So I'm going to go to decisions so you start understanding what exactly I'm talking about. For example, sleeping around, okay? We have been taught by many of these movies that it doesn't matter. Even when we don't feel fine with our bodies or ourselves, and we don't even like the person, and we don't believe that that person deserves our energy, we still are sleeping around, and women keep doing it because they sometimes believe that we need to behave also like men and try to feel like them. If they don't care who they sleep with, that happens the same with us, when we very deep in ourselves know it's not like that. The other thing is the opposite, which is restricting our sexual drive. It's restricting our desire, to express our sexuality. There are a lot of women that suffer of that guilt, and they don't do anything, so they restrict themselves, and then they are like not letting that energy to flow, but to block themselves. Other decisions regarding our womb is abortion. There is a lot of abortion freedom lately, and I'm not judging the decision. Again, is understanding what that decision and the fact that you did it had in your system. We are cutting the most powerful energy that there is in the world, which is the creation from our wombs. So when you cut that, it's not as simple as, oh, it's legal now, it makes sense, I don't have to have babies, etc. I'm not ready for babies, etc. Yes, that's the rational decision, but what did that cause in your body? What did that cause in your mind? So that's the awareness I want to bring here, and that's what I know we need this healing. The other thing is, yep.
I'm going to ask, just for clarity, I want to be careful in how I say this, because it's certainly not a field that I commonly work with when it comes to this actual term, abortion. But to be clear, I understand what we're saying here. What you're saying here is that these are profoundly important decisions that people make when they enter into this, and it's not about assigning a right or wrong value to it.
Exactly.
It's about being aware that what has taken place is, kind of absolutely against the sort of laws of nature, because nature built us to do a certain thing, and so it does that as a result of something we did, however that happened. Even here's where I want to talk carefully. There's lots of variables here. Let's just throw that out there. Regardless of what led up to the point of that choice being made, it still cut a process of creation in the universe that is as natural as you could possibly get. So you want to talk about divinity or all those kinds of things, whether that's the infinite power of the universe, an actual connection to a Godhead, or an actual God in a religious form, whatever it is, that process now you have interrupted in a way that can't be undone. And so basically, without a right or wrong to it, to be aware of that and to come to grips with it, to come up with not just a rationale of it because, it's legal and it's easy for me to get out of this or whatever. Maybe there's a lot to that. The legal part has nothing to do with you. But the changing your life in a positive way might actually be the case. You might not be in a position to do this. It might be a child or a case of, again, I don't want to get into particulars, but there's times where, yes, the quality of life might be better for the individual. Still, it's best for that individual to really do some work on this and make sure that it's not creating some baggage in your memory, in your, being in your subconscious, or however you want to look at it, that's going to be a detriment to you going forward, that then other expressions of that problem appear and you don't really know why. Well, it's because of this other thing, and you would never think that they're attached, but it's just like any of those negative thoughts and feelings that are still running around in there that we sort of are snuffing away and we've forgotten about, packed away with reason and logic. Well, the heart doesn't have reason and logic. That's up here. That's in the brain. And so you need to connect those two, and that's more, we'll talk more about that later, but I just want to be clear on that, because it's such a sensitive topic. And
yeah, there are other decisions that probably are not sensitive, but are also affecting this energy flow, which is, for example, the decision not to have babies, which is my case, okay? So since I was born, I knew I was not gonna have babies. I don't know, it was like I have a connection with my future self. I actually don't know why. Some people say that I probably have a curse or something like that, but it's a decision which I feel in peace with. But sometimes certain thoughts come to my mind that says like, oh my God, I'm not gonna feel what it feels to be a mother. I'm not gonna have that feeling. I'm not gonna have that sensation. So there is still, even though there is a decision made, whether it's from my sacred contract or unconsciously, or because I really like, hey, I don't want babies, I don't feel it, or I can put whatever excuse I want, there is still this conflict between myself, between, oh my God, the feeling of, and yes, but I want to. So this is the space we're talking about, all the decisions related to our womb that we made, that we believe are right. It makes sense to our rational mind, but we don't know how we're interfering against this creativity flow of energy.
In your book, you have in your chapters, all of a sudden it says personal story, and you tell the personal story. So I'm going to interject a little personal story right here from the Two American Nomads part of our life together. It's funny, Huli, from day one, she said that she never wanted to have kids, and of course I have 4 children already. They're grown or getting there anyway. 2 of them are fully out there in the world, and one of them even has a child himself. But so that's my piece of the action on that. And as far as she goes, she had decided long ago she didn't want to have children. She's also never been pregnant, and so that would be that. I mean, obviously we can't talk about that because that's not something that's in the cards. No. But that would be interesting how that would have changed in your mind there. Again, that would have been some work that you would have had to have done. But I will say this about Huli. As part of her work on dealing with that, and we don't talk much about that. That's in her. But I will say that we have this little thing, real life story, that whenever we're walking down the street, there's 2 things that just lights her up and melts her. And One of them, it doesn't melt her, it lights her up, are all kinds of little dogs. And there's lots of people that walk little dogs, so I always say, oh, and I point, and there's a little dog, and she'll smile. And I actually have an Instagram account for dogs now. But the other one, and the one that's more profound, is if we see a toddler down to like a little baby, and I'll say, uh-oh, and point over there, and she will just stop. And I mean, almost, sometimes little tears almost, and just, we want to take a break. So we jokingly said, too bad you can't rent one for a day until the diaper's full or something. But it's not like that. But anyway, I'll just say that it's not like there's an aversion to children even. I mean, she just made a conscious decision early in her life that she did not want to have children. And now, reaching middle life, I don't even exactly know when that starts, but that still stands. And now she's with me, and we're not planning on that ending anytime soon. So that'll be the case. So that was the real life story. Now back to the story.
Yeah. So the other decision, it's true. I love babies. The other decision is the having babies because they want to hold men, or they want to keep them in their lives, or just because their partners wanted to and they just decided to do it, and probably they have this guilt, no wanting, and they having them, which is totally normal. It's just again, we're not trying to judge the decisions, but to be aware of the impact that might have in our body. And also that is very common is having children because it's what the protocol says, like, oh, this is the checklist.
The successful life.
Yeah. And the other thing is not having babies, because you are supposed to have the perfect partner, the perfect family, not to have babies. When we see that you can have babies regardless. So there are many women that caught that energy and that desire because they've never found a partner, okay? So though that also have impact in their energy and their womb, and probably that's impacting everything that's happening today with them, not only the relationship, but also the abundance and the creative flow, and the becoming more ourselves, because this is part of our story. So it's beautiful to embrace it, heal it, and channel that energy. So basically, even though we are rationally in peace with these decisions, we want to go further to see what else is that those decisions telling us, and if we are really heal everything, the pain that they left, probably the samskaras, the impressions, the subconscious, whatever you want to call it, that are still stuck in our bodies and our minds. So there is an alignment still. There is still a fight in our feelings, in our energy. So that's why I decided to ask Steve for this ceremony that we're going to be doing on the 20th of March, close to the equinox, the spring's equinox. Because what I believe is, I really deeply believe that we need to start listening to ourselves. I started listening to Asian teachings and spirits, because they have a lot of wisdom that we have blocked from this modern world. We are obviously in another level of consciousness. We cannot compare our minds to the minds that Buddha had before, and we're creating new archetypes and we're evolving. However, also our scientific mind, our materialistic mindset has blocked a lot of the wisdom that these Asian civilizations had before. So what I asked Steve is like, why don't we bring this energy, this spirit in a ceremony, so we can not only listen to our bodies, our wound, what they have to say, what those decisions is, whether those decisions are still our mind, body or not, so we can channel through the wisdom and the energetics of these spirits and heal, like not only from our body and our intuition and what it has to say, but what is there to help us to heal. So this is why Steve is here with me, because I want his expertise in shamanism, shamanic practices, and I want to understand a little more. I want the people that are going to join the ceremony to understand how this is going to work. What are we going to do, and how the spirits of this shamanic journey is going to help us heal of this disconnection we have between our rational minds and our true selves.
Okay. I had some comments on what you were saying.
Yeah.
I just want to say really quick, again, Huli came to me with this topic, and we talked about it for a while, and that's why we're going to be doing this upcoming ceremony here shortly, both live and online. But, in all of that discussion, again, there's different reasons that people might be one of those things that she talked about on the approach to where maybe the womb healing needs to take place or could take place. There's some of them that are conscious choices, that don't really have a negative impact that you can see on the surface. They may never have any kind of, and that would be, hey, I just never want to have kids, like Huli's. Then there's other ones that sort of do have much more profound, such as, some of the others that we talked about. But again, it's not about right or wrong. It's not about looking back at the past. You could look back at the past all the way to caveman days, and we're never going to find a real reason for anything, because everything is a culmination of all the things that have ever happened. And granted, there's certain things along the way that you do need to come to grips with, and that's what we're talking about. And so that's the thing, that nothing was being championed or pointed out as less than in that. And so it's more about just being able to look into your own past and to identify those things that might be there, that might be creating potential blocks, even though they might not look that directly at it, like with today. And like in my work, I do two sort of parallel paths. In my work in addiction as a counselor, most oftentimes we find that people that struggle with substance abuses, it's rarely about the thing that they say right off the bat, because that's a result of something else, and again, we're not going to be reductionists and go back and try to dig back. I think there's too much attention and too much lip service and too much money invested in the rearview mirror. You need to identify it, whatever, figure it out, get there quickly, find somebody that can help you do that, or do that yourself, whatever, get there, resolve it and move on, start going forward. Life happens in every instant, and it's always going to be like that. There's no such thing as the future or the past. Those are just, one's an imaginary place that's going to happen, because it always does. We're never there, though. We're always right here. And the past is just a bunch of memories. It's not there either. You can see the results of it, but those are those things as they are right now. So we're always just in the moment there. And so I wanted to just say that, sort of wrapping up my thoughts on hearing that, and thank you for that, Huli. That's an interesting space that I don't hear much about in my field, you could say, in that side. Now, as far as she wanted me to help out on something from the shamanic background that I have, which has been going on for about a decade now. And in that time, I've focused largely on Nordic and Celtic approaches. And the way that I view basically that is that spirits, we want to connect with first off, shamanism is about connecting with the spirit world. However you want to, whatever expression it comes from around the planet, all the various traditions talk about the same thing. It's a connection with the spirits. No spirits, no shaman. And that doesn't mean I'm a shaman. I practice shamanism. I think that to be an actual shaman is something that somebody else maybe has to call you or something. That's a deep topic. I don't want to sideline myself. So I practice shamanism in the way that I've experienced in studying it around the world, currently in Latin America. But like I said, this upcoming thing is going to be dealing with my forte, which is Celtic. And so we're connecting with spirits. Okay, well, how do you connect with spirits, right? Well, the process of shamanic journeying, which is similar to meditation, is that we connect with our heart. Okay, we go in through our heart and then leave our body with our soul and go into the other world, or non-ordinary reality. And that's where we connect with spirit. Our mind is still there, obviously, because we're consciously aware that this is going on, but we turn off all the day-to-day thoughts much in the same way that you would do in meditation. But in here, we're actually leaving the body. We're leaving the body, the soul is gone, it's off mingling with spirit. Okay, now what is spirit? Spirit can be whatever you want it to be. You know, a lot of people refer to it as, say, source or just simply spirit. Some that have more of a clinical, I guess you could say, approach, more of a conscious type approach would be consciousness type approach, would be the Godhead, which would be the ultimate power of the universe or something like that, the ultimate creative process, however you want to look at it. But even when you say creative, that's a past tense. Creation is in every instant also. It's forever ongoing. Creation happens now. You know, you could say creation might happen, but again, now we're talking about the future. And so there's things that were created, yeah, blah, blah, blah. So creation is in every instance. So that means that whatever we can consciously conceive of in sort of the animistic view that I have of the world, where the world is alive, everything has a spirit. There's a spirit of place, there's a spirit of a time, there's a spirit of everything around us, if you want to look at it like that. Because you can relate to it. And so we relate to things on ways that we can't see, just like we can't see our soul, we can't see our consciousness. And my relationship with the chair, I can view it as, okay, that too can have a soul, or a spirit, you could say. Not a soul, but a spirit. So animated means that everything alive in the universe. So if you want to take that now to what is spirit, well, wait, I've heard about these Celtic gods. I've heard about Brigade, I've heard about the Morrigan, I've heard about Lu, and Miak, and Aramid, and all these other ones. Or if I go to the Norse, I've heard of Thor, and Heimdall, and Loki, and all the other ones that Marvel has told you about. And so I don't have to think of them, though, in those forms. I can just think of them in what they mean to me, and what I know, or what I've heard about them, what maybe they symbolize to me. And that image of my thought then also can be real and have a spirit. So that thought process alone, you can maybe do it like that. That's kind of the way that I do it. I do, when I journey, sometimes have sort of visual, imaginatory sort of experiences where I see things like that. Mostly it's a different experience altogether. It's a deep thought type process and just nonsense going on, basically. But it doesn't have to make sense, because see, sense is up here, that's in your mind. Your heart is all about your intuition and your body experience. So now you're connecting with something in a very different, abstract way. So that's the way that I'm going to approach this on this upcoming ceremony. You know, the equinox is all about the return of spring. It's associated with Brigade in the Celtic world. Her actual day just passed. That was Imbolc on February 1st. But she's been associated in the past with things like the light and the creative process. And how perfect is that? And so I figure we're going to connect with the spirit of Brigade. And then the other Celtic presence that we're going to bring into it is the Morrigan, which in the most oldest ways that we know about it, both of these come out of the stories of the Tuatha De Danann, and I have a video on that on my YouTube channel. You can go watch it. I just did it the other day on Facebook. It's fresh in my mind. And so the Morrigan, though, is very complex. The Morrigan is actually made up of three lesser goddesses, or how we want to look at that. She's a tri-goddess that's common in the Celtic world. And so hers is more of a complex story of things like battle and warfare and omens of the future. It deals more with the outcome of things that are sometimes that you don't really want to do, but you have to. You know, like she's associated with ravens in the battlefield, right? Well, the reason for that would be that you had to fight the battle because you had to defend your land, and that was a positive thing, but war is never a positive thing. But the cost of victory would be you lose these men. And so that would be, she's associated with carrying away those souls, much the same as the Valkyrie would be in the Nordic tradition, carrying off the honorable souls to Valhalla. So with her, it's more of an introspection into why we're doing things. Sometimes they're not so pretty, but we do them, and there's a cost. And so it's about the sort of cost of what you do in the way that we're going to work with her on this occasion. So combining those two together, we have, I think, a lot of healing potential here for the space that Huli just talked about. And on the actual day of the event, she's going to have a guided meditation where she's going to sort of put some of these thoughts in everybody and then get rid of everything else. And then we're going to do this shamanic journey. And in the shamanic journey, which will be a fire ceremony of sorts, we will connect with, we'll go into the other world through the journeying process, which will be explained briefly that day. You don't have to have experience in this in the past. It's easy enough to do. You just got to let go of everything. And so we're going to connect with Brigade. And to briefly talk one more thing about Brigade, I want to say that, I was just reminded of this the other day. I'm a member of the Society of Shamanic Practitioners, which is a global organization of people that practice shamanism. And one of my person I respect a lot is Jamie Meyer. He does Celtic shamanism and has been for a number of years. He just wrote a thing about Brigade recently over on that site, and I think it's available for free. You can go read it. But in it, he tells the story of one of the first times that the Celtic, the barbarians, made their way to Rome. One of the first times that they sacked Rome, about 2,000 years ago or whenever it was, that when they entered, the king of the Celts, Braesus or something like that was his name, he saw these statues of Apollo and Zeus and all these other things, or how that might be the Greek, but anyway, the Roman equivalent of who those are. They laughed. They couldn't believe that the Romans viewed their gods with such a disrespect or lack of whatever, that they would humanize them, that they would anthropomorphize them into human shapes. And that's why with the Celts, it really wasn't about, they had shapes. Like Brigade is now there are the stories of the Tuatha Danann where they are living actual characters in the story, the Morrigan and Brigade. But just like Danu, who's the mother of them, all we know about Danu, who's the creator of all the Tuatha Danann, that's literally their name, children of Danu. Nowhere is there any mention of her, any of the oldest two texts that we have dealing with this tribe. Never mentioned a word she says, what she looks like. There's not even any case that she's a she. It's just that they are the children of Danu. We're assuming that's a mother. And so that gives you an idea, though, right there. That being their top of their creative process of spirituality doesn't even have anything to build on other than it's there. And then this story about how in real history, the Celts just thought it was laughable that the Greeks actually had shapes to gods. And so that gets back to the animistic form that I was talking about at the beginning, because that really resonated with me, Wade, because I sort of just connect with the thought, the spirit of it, and therefore that becomes alive, and then that becomes a spirit. See how that works. And I believe all the spirituality is a highly personal thing to do. There's no guidebooks, there's no rules, and so that works for me, and that's just the way that I do it. Full disclosure on that. And so when it gets back to Brigade, we don't have to think of Brigade as even any kind of shape. We can just think of Brigade as the light, right? The light that in the wintertime starts to warm the snow to eventually get it to melt. That around her time in Imbolc, at the beginning of February, when the way that it goes and the way that I remember being with Christy Gray and the teachers I was with back years ago, when she would do the drumming on Imbolc and put your ear to the ground, you could hear the seeds rumbling under the earth because they're getting ready to grow, they're starting to germinate. Well, that's that light starting to warm up the soil and get down there. And that's this creative process that we hear, because sometimes you'll see Brigade likened to the blacksmith and all that. Well, the blacksmith could be thought of as well. Look at the fact that even with the strongest iron, if you put enough light on it in the form of fire, which is energy, right? Same thing. It's eventually not only going to turn the iron to the color that it is before it melts it and reshapes it. You can create something new out of it. So it's a very creative, strong light to be able to change anything into anything it wants to, or to let that thing become whatever it wants to in the case of the seed. Right? So we're going to do this journey where we're going to go in and take a deep dive and look into our thoughts as they manifest in this journey, as we're thinking of these things that Huli will have talked about in the meditation. And then once we have a clear sight of those things, then we're going to connect with the Morrigan. And we're going to look for the validity of what we just learned. We're going to look at flip sides of it. What was the cost? What if I don't do something about it? However, that's going to be very personal. But at the end of that experience, then we'll wrap up the journey. And I think that people that will have gone through it, regardless of where you are in the spectrum of all the things that she talked about, you will have a new understanding of it. And hopefully that will be something that can give you some healing that maybe you didn't even know was either available or was something that you could use. Because a lot of times, like I said earlier, when it comes to like the people with substance abuse, we'd find that it was the most interesting other little thing that really started a chain of events that
Exactly.
led to today. And we would have never thought of that otherwise. I would have never thought to go back to when I literally didn't get a bike in 9th grade.
What is
and,
going to
you know,
happen?
and so
What is going to happen?
that's
is
when
like
it comes out.
It's going during the meditation and the journey. It's going to flourish a lot of
Right.
new feelings, sensations, thoughts that we hadn't realized with our rational thoughts.
Right.
So we really need this to connect with that intuitive healing
And-
part we have in ourselves.
Right, and so the intuitive part I wanted to finish real fast, not to interrupt me, but you nailed it. I didn't finish at the end of the journey. And so what we do at the end of a journey is we leave non-ordinary reality. We leave the other world, as the Celts call it, or we leave the spirit world, as say they would refer to it in Native American traditions. However you refer to it, or the dream time, as the Aboriginals would call it. We would leave that space and we come back with our soul through our heart. And then we come back into the room in our conscious mind. Now what we have is our thoughts about it, but now they're being influenced by our intuition from our heart, because we just had a heartfelt experience with spirit. And so now we've got an internal dialogue that maybe is making a little bit more sense. Maybe now you're listening more to your heart, because as I've said so many times, the body never lies and your mind does. And this is your body. This is your gut feeling, your intuition. And you can always rationalize it out, but that's where the lies come in. That's where the easy road is taken, when you know I should have really done the other thing, but it's not. I can't, or I can see. That's where the victim comes in. I can't do it because of. So this can maybe help with some of those spaces, and so I'm glad that Huli asked me to be a part of this. I do these kind of events pretty often, but this one I really like the intention of it, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
So I'm gonna share with you the link to our online event. It's gonna be on the 20th. If you are in Cancun, Playa del Carmen, or Cozumel,
if
we're
you're in the
gonna
Riviera Maya, or how do you say?
Riviera Maya.
I was doing both. What do they call it though?
Yucatan Peninsula.
No. In English, what do they call Riviera Maya?
Riviera Maya.
No, they don't.
Mayan Riviera.
I think they call it the Mayan Riviera.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is right. Anyway, if you're in the Yucatan Peninsula, anywhere between Cancun, Playa del Carmen, Tulum, Cozumel, we'll be doing one here live at Yoga
Para Ti.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll hopefully maybe still be going to be doing one in Playa del Carmen, and we're trying to set something up for Tulum. By then, though, it won't be equinox. We'll be doing another ceremony. So even if you're coming on vacation to this area, stay in touch, like us on Facebook, get on our mailing list, whatever. But you're definitely invited to this online event that we're doing here soon. And there's always a chance down the line we might stream some of these other ones we do. But the problem there would be sound. Like I found out, if you were in the Tuahede Danan thing the other night, when I started rattling, you couldn't hear me talking.
So if you are in Mexico, so just let us know, write a message. I will send you the information for the Cozumel event. And then online it's going to be on Sunday 20th at 11 Eastern time. So we're very, very happy for you being here. Please share this with the people you think may need this. There is a lot of women that may feel this need, but also I think men are welcome to join. We are connected in so many ways, and male are also part of our healing. So if they want to do it to understand better their partners, to connect with the feminine side, whatever, men are also welcome to join.
Certainly, and regardless of the topic, the process that we'll be going through in the Shamanic Journeying part of it, and really the topic the same way if it was a different topic with Huli's meditation, but particularly with the journey process, we can insert anything in there, because oftentimes I'll do journeys where we don't even really have anything scheduled. It's just a journey, and everybody has their own intention, so it could be anything. This one is a guided thing with the topics that Huli has brought to the table, and I do those at times too with mine. But other times in the past, and maybe you've been in one of my groups live in person anyway, people just go off on their own from the very beginning. I really never say much at all. But they still go through the same process.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. So thank you everybody for being here, for listening to us for like around 50 minutes. And we hope to connect with you too. You can follow our Instagram accounts, you can follow our YouTube channels, and friend us on Facebook. We can keep in contact, okay?
Yeah.
So, thank you very much. Besos, abrazos.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.